Longtime viewers of this channel are likely aware of the fact that I used to play quite a bit of Call of Duty, and I was a rather big enjoyer of Warzone 1 for the first year and a half-ish of its life cycle. However, I largely tapped out of Call of Duty entirely during the Vanguard life cycle, and I'm yet to even touch either Modern Warfare 2 or Warzone 2. I just don't care anymore. And everything I've heard about both games has been entirely negative. Activision has spent the last 3 to 4 years making it very, very clear that they don't want people like me infesting the servers anymore because I have basic game sense and half-decent aim, meaning I must only be allowed to play against the sweatiest people imaginable forevermore. But out of morbid curiosity, I've been following the state of MW2 and Warzone 2 and having a good chuckle whenever the devs fumble something new. As of the recording of this video, Warzone is sitting with a big fat mostly negative on Steam, with the most common complaints being the horrible game pace, horrendous optimization, long list of bugs, increasing number of cheaters, pointless shadow bans, absurd matchmaking, and most recently, actual pay-to-win bundles being added to the Escape from Tarkov ripoff mode. I could make an entire video just going through the Steam reviews for this piece of garbage, but that's not what this video is about. You read the title and you want to know how Respawn Entertainment factors into this. And in due time, dear viewer, but first we have to make fun of Call of Duty a little bit more, just to, set the stage and more properly get into the meat of this YouTube video experience. According to Steam charts right now, all of the current Call of Duty offerings on Steam, meaning MW2, DMZ, and Warzone 2 put together, is sitting with just 64,000 players, which puts it barely above Team Fortress 2 and dramatically under other Battle Royale games like PUBG and the Chad Apex Legends. Now, as a huge fan of classic Infinity Ward games like COD 4 and really just COD 4 now that I think about it, it's been incredibly satisfying to see Respawn Entertainment effectively dethrone their old adversary, and while I know the company is far from perfect, it's at least nice to see the underdog Respawn finally prove their worth against their biggest competitor. And before anyone says anything, I'm not at all excusing the abysmal launch of Jedi Survivor or the rather subpar communication skills of the Apex Legends team over the last year or so. But that brings us to the topic of this video. On May 3rd, Respawn finally broke their silence about the ongoing audio issues in Apex Legends, posting a comprehensive explanation as to why things have been the way they've been, and promising a fix in the near future, likely with the new season that's set to start in a few days. Modern Warzone, a prominent Call of Duty Twitter account, screenshotted the post and expressed a rather human desire to have that kind of communication for the Warzone team. And that, dear viewer, was his first mistake. Because despite Call of Duty being in a frankly embarrassing state in terms of quality, influence, and viewership, and despite the lack of communication and bug fixes from the COD team being an absolutely unacceptable piece of the franchise, this IP still manages to attract the most try-hard of try-hards who absolutely refuse to accept that there are things wrong with their favorite franchise. And within a few hours, a lot of those kinds of people were showing their faces in the replies to this tweet from Modern Warzone. And honestly, just reading this interaction was kind of depressing. Like, the Call of Duty dev team has a reputation for being very pretentious and actively against the desires of the community. And if you're someone like Modern Warzone, whose entire brand was built around covering the series, I honestly just feel bad for you at this point, because it really seems like the most basic of demands from the community are being actively fought by the people in charge. This is the same game that insisted on deleting your 3 years of progress on Warzone 1 because Warzone 2 was just going to be that awesome and innovative and evolutionary, and then you got stuck with an objectively worse product that still hasn't shown any actual value over what came before it. It's buggy, it's unbalanced, it's literally pay to win in certain game modes, and it really seems like the people in charge just don't care what the community thinks about any of that. And again, I want to reiterate that Apex Legends has had quite a bit of communication issues as well, and there are certainly major issues with the game that have gone unaddressed, or largely unaddressed, I'll say. I've been playing Apex since launch day, like I'm absolutely aware of Respawn's shortcomings. But Respawn is a company of a little over 300 people working on multiple IPs. Compare that to the over 3,000 people working on Call of Duty, and you should see the point that I'm getting at here. The number of basic issues Call of Duty has is fucking embarrassing when compared to the number of people working on it, and yet it still somehow has a die-hard community of players who refuse to accept that there could possibly be anything wrong with the way it's being handled. Call of Duty has roughly 10 times the entire workforce of Respawn Entertainment, and yet it seems basic communication on Warzone fixes is too much to ask for. In fact, it's so out of line to want basic communication for Warzone that if you even suggest that you want basic communication for Warzone, you'll get blasted across Twitter by the die-hard COD players. But don't just take my word for it, I have screenshots. People who want to complain will complain about everything. COD has done a better job in communicating. Remember, it's free to play. They don't have to answer every idiotic question that streamers ask. So, do they communicate or do they not communicate? Because you said they do communicate, but they don't have to answer every question. And you also seem to brush this off by the game being free to play, which Apex is as well. And friendly reminder that Apex is developed by Respawn Entertainment, a company of 300 and some change people working on multiple projects. I'm not excusing Apex's slow communication, but I'm at least saying it's understandable given the situation they're in. Call of Duty, with over 3,000 team members, has no excuse. Especially not for basic fundamental problems with the game, like, I don't know, cheaters? Pay-to-win mechanics? Game-breaking glitches? People getting banned for no reason? I mean, just last week I saw something about how a game mode in the free-to-play mode was locked behind a paywall, air quotes, on accident. How is it possible to have 3,000 people working on a franchise and the most basic fundamental issues with it are still so amateurish? Call of Duty absolutely has not done a good job at communicating. And I mean, they've done a good job at lying. I'm old enough to remember back during the run for COD World War II when a lot of people were complaining about score give-outs in objective game modes. If you didn't play COD World War II during the first few months, some of the objective game modes, especially Domination, had really low score distributions for objective play, and the community was really upset about this because it made the game really slow, and it made score streaks basically impossible to get if you were playing the objective. To which the COD devs basically just set out and said, oh, we have internal data that says it's good, so we're not changing it. By all means, don't show us the data, just tell us it exists. And this is the kind of thing that COD continues to do. Every single time I see a blog post from Infinity Ward or Raven, there's always something in there that just makes you tilt your head and go, really? Like, really? Like, I'm pretty sure Warzone patches don't even give you exact numbers on weapon buffs and nerfs anymore. They just tell you a buff or nerf occurred and expect you to go figure it out. In Warzone 1, there was an epidemic of weapons and attachments getting stealth buffs and nerfs, like dramatic changes to the gameplay that were not in patch notes at all, which I think is the literal opposite of communication. Call of Duty has horrendous communication. They always have. It's one thing to go radio silent, but it's another thing entirely to give lackluster information or just give wrong information. Like, you realize you're allowed to criticize this, right? I wouldn't reply to the community either after all the shit talk and toxic comments about the game because streamers feel they deserve answers, they can fix problems without realizing a statement. Who are you, we to demand a statement? Let shit talk commence. I'm ready to sweating devil faces. Yeah, moving on. Go play Apex then and quit crying. That's all you do on this app. Yes, because pointing at Call of Duty's rival and basically just going, hey, it would be cool if we had that, that counts as crying. How do vitriolic defenders of Call of Duty like this still exist? How much shit do they have to literally shove in your ear holes and down your throat and into your eyeballs? Like, how many times does Activision have to take advantage of you until you stop blindly defending like this? The Apex Legends team showed basic and frankly outdated communication skills. A Call of Duty Twitter account points out that that happened and says, hey, it'd be cool if we had that. And your response is for them to go play Apex instead of COD because they want an objective improvement for the entire community. Holy shit. Okay, rename your Twitter to Apex, thank you. At first I thought your profile picture was Glenn from Surf's Up, but it's not. It's just an actual penguin, like an actual not animated penguin. So fuck you for giving me false hope like that. Also, this is a really dumb point for all of the previous arguments. Just see previous arguments and apply them here. Imagine reading that Bible.
How can you read this? There's no pictures.
Call of Duty players want communication, but then when they get communication, I'm not reading that. How could I read that? That's too much words. Imagine if you don't hate every day. Again, how is it hate? How is it crying to just point at a point at Call of Duty's main competitor. Like, one of Warzone's main competitors is Apex Legends. What Apex does affects Warzone and vice versa a lot of the time. Not so much now, because Activision has thoroughly destroyed the Warzone brand over the last year or two. But I don't understand this. How is it hating for a prominent Call of Duty personality to point at Call of Duty's competition and be like, hey, they're doing something cool. I wish we had that kind of cool thing. Apex had an ongoing issue with its audio, and when Respawn finally figured out the root of the problem, they gave a very long and detailed explanation as to what was causing the problem and how they're going to fix it. You can't tell me that you don't want that for Warzone if you're still somehow playing Warzone. Too bad Apex is mid and Modern Warfare 2 is peak. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I don't want to talk about this anymore. This sucks. This sucks and I don't like it. Toodles.